Well, why don't I kick things off and maybe, building a little bit on what you said, Chris, and I think everyone else is alluding to, obviously we don't have to dwell on 2020, but, early days here in 2021, I think we know, that the markets seem to be somewhat robust, obviously a little bit of variability, but there appears to be lots and ample amounts of capital for life science companies. It looks like if there are good companies out there, they have an opportunity to get seed funded or Series A or progression. But maybe I throw it out to the panel and have a little bit of a discussion with our two CEOs. And then Chris, from your perspective as an investor, and then Rich, as you look at companies that are kind of building their banking and really getting their companies moving forward. Are there some key themes? Are there some things that our participants that are aspiring entrepreneurs or currently are entrepreneurs that are running companies, what is the key to get capital? Because I know there's money out there, but yet a number of people seem to not be able to kind of figure out how to get the right amount of capital or have an attractive investment thesis for folks that have the money. So anyone want to get started with that? Joe, please.
So I think you have to put yourself in the position and mind of the possible investors and really understand who they are and what their investment thesis is. And then be a very good storyteller about you and your company. And they used to say in the olden days that investors either bet on the horse, which is the company, or the jockey, which is the CEO or executive team. And I think people, as an investor, you always want to de-risk. So does it look like they have the right team that can execute on their vision and mission and goals and strategy? And are they excited about the company? Because it's a little bit like dating. And one thing you need to remember raising money is the people with the rules, with the money get to make the rules. And then my number one job description, which isn't written down anywhere, is I have to raise money every 18 to 24 months at minimum double the valuation. It's never been written down anywhere. And you just do. And it's tougher to do when you're a tough tech company, but that keeps you also very honest that you're not funding an R&D project here. You're funding something that is tough, but you believe it's achievable. You need to break out and pick market verticals. I know that's so tough for people to do. But practice, make a list of VCs you want to talk to, rank them, and start your practice with the ones that you wouldn't mind losing. I know you think you want everyone's money. No, some money comes weird, and you just walk away from that. But you try your best, and you have to be authentic, and you have to be, I think, passionate about what you're doing. My dad says I have a disease called entrepreneuring. There are far easier ways. If you're in this to make money, I think there's easier ways to make money. But I really love what I do. And I think I look at myself as a bridge between business and science, and also in all the teams in my different companies. And I really love what I do. It really gets me out of bed in the morning. And I think investors can see that.
Yeah. So I'll add a couple of things, Jill, that was fabulous points to make. And I know it sounds a little bit like a cliche, but I think it's important to reinforce what Jill said. I think the storytelling, the underlying proposition, the team, betting on who's going to execute the plan is pretty critical. And I think for any young company, early stage, building from the ground up, that's pretty much the the center of attention for investors. But I'll add a couple of points from our experience in 2020, but also going further into 2021. One was about execution. Not just because of the pandemic. IM Therapeutics was already in clinical stage in mid-2020. So it was all about execution. Certainly the pandemic took a twist to that, but it was about getting the IND done. It was about getting into phase 1. It was about recruiting patients. It was about mitigating risk, about how do we outreach in the best way possible to investigators, patients, And we had to be creative about getting around different sites, the communication around it. But in some ways, it helped us become more creative, whether it was using Zoom, whether it was using other modes of communication. I think it lent itself to actually building more efficiencies into the system. And we took advantage of that in some ways. I would say the other thing, which also we had to focus on a bit, but I think the market focused on it a bit as well, is beyond the execution of what was on hand, is to sort of look at the pipeline as well. What else can come next? And in some ways, that gave us an opportunity, in fact, as a internal team, to look beyond just was, sort of our nose to the grindstone, get it done. It allowed us to, in some ways, zoom out a bit, and see what else could come, further in the hopper. And I think, figuring out what else is in the pipeline, what opportunities should we take advantage of, it gave us as a team an opportunity to really think about what next and put some more meat to it. So I think it's been great, and I think 2021 is sort of a continued extension of that we'll leverage further.
Chris, how about it from your perspective?
Yeah, it really resonated with me, kind of Jill's description, because I think it does reflect reality, right? I think that there's no lack of capital. In fact, there's probably been more people who are less sophisticated, who don't have long years or decades of experience investing in life sciences. And so I think the quality of the investor is important, and it helps avoid an antagonistic relationship. So when you have an investor that doesn't see themselves as really an extension of the team and really there to help and support and to be partly responsible for helping create that value, then what happens is anytime you have a hiccup, which inevitably happens in biotech life sciences development, they like to point the finger. Oh, what's wrong with the CEO? What's going on? Do we need a new management team, right? And oftentimes it can be easily resolved. It can be, aided and helped by a good and active, board of directors or investor group that sees themselves as part of, problem solving. And so, one of the reasons I started Zontogeny was, I wanted to remove this idea that first-time CEOs, people earlier in their careers, could not be viable, CEOs with the right oversight, mentorship, right, coaching. And if something goes wrong, I blame as much myself and, my team for not anticipating these problems. And so I think that, while money is money and it helps, I think there's almost a bifurcated kind of sector. There's the ones where you have sophisticated, well-esteemed investors where, they can weave a nice story and people just automatically give them credibility and think that, even when things go wrong, that they'll figure out a way through it. And then there are those that are not part of that quote club. And there it is all about data. It's all about advancing the technology, proving to the world, right, that we actually have something here and we have the data to prove it. And so I think that the best combination is to get someone who can help with that, who has experience, who has credibility, but is really focused on data generation and not just a splashy press release and a big advisory group that's affiliated with the company, that you're really advancing the technology. And yeah, that's what we try to do. And that's part of our selling point of why people want to work with us, is that we see ourselves as, duly responsible with the management team to make sure everything goes well.
Great.